First off, nothing can go wrong with teenagers and molten glass. There's just
nothing.
Welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. Here's your host, Scott Cowan.
All right. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast. This episode today is a conversation I've had with Melissa Misoda, and Melissa is a glass artist based in the Seattle area. She is a blown glass artist, so she creates vases and bowls and cups and paperweights and all sorts of things out of blown glass. That in itself is very cool, but the interesting wrinkle to Melissa's story, as far as I'm concerned, is that she is also a art teacher at Sammamish High School in Bellevue, where for the past 20 years, she has been teaching high school kids how to blow glass. Sammamish High School has a glass studio, and she is their instructor where she can teach teenage kids how to blow glass, which I just think is an interesting combination. So we're going to listen to Melissa. She's going to tell us her journey, her story, and all sorts of other interesting facts and tidbits. I think you're going to like this one. So here we go. Here is Melissa. Well, Melissa, thank you for joining us today. Welcome. I appreciate you making time on the weekend to do this. So I'm just going to turn the mic off and let you talk. So why don't you tell us how you got started in glass and what's your story?
How I got started in glass. Well, I was lucky enough to end up at a community college that offered glass blowing. One of the things I feel strongly about is there's not enough career education taught in high school. I think there needs to be. And I was one of those students who kind of got lost in the mix and didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. My parents were both teachers and felt strongly about getting an education, but they kind of knew I was a little bit lost, so sent me to the local community college. Luckily, I had very supportive parents.
Let me interrupt you and ask you, where was the local community college?
Yes. I am from Pennsylvania, and the local community college was Bucks County Community College.
Okay.
So I remember one day looking through the course catalog going, what am I going to take? What am I going to do? And saw glass blowing. This was, 93, 92. I graduated in 92. I don't remember what year it was. I saw glass blowing, and I honestly had no idea what it was. No clue. It just sounded interesting. So I took the class, and first class, that was it. I was hooked, glass blowing. So after spending about a year at community college, decided this is what I'm going to do. I moved on to a school in California because I wanted to get as far away from Philly as possible at that time, teenager. And went to California College. Back then it was called California College of Arts and Crafts. It is now California College of Art, I think. It's changed in Oakland. And I spent a year there, realized, you know what, maybe California is not for me. And so I moved back home, I think spent another semester at community college, and then ended up getting my degree from Tyler School of Art in Philadelphia. Once I graduated, actually, let me backtrack. So as I said earlier, my parents both being educators, I remember my mom talking me into being very supportive of me wanting to blow glass, but talking me into getting my teaching degree as a backup plan. And I kind of thought, I'm not going to be a teacher, but all right, I'll do it, So I did. And I got my degree, thought, all right, now what am I going to do? About a month after graduating, my mom calls me up and goes, hey, I see there's this job posted to teach glass blowing in a high school in Seattle. And I went, Seattle? It rains there all the time. I'm not going to Seattle. And I thought, I'm not applying for that job. And she kind of persisted. And so I applied for the job. And I remember having a phone interview and getting hired. And all of a sudden, I found myself going, okay, I'm moving to Seattle. Never been there before. Let's do this. Knew nobody. Had about a week, I think, to pack up and move, sight unseen. And that was 99, and I've been teaching ever since, and realized that I love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on it looks like you have a master's in fine arts from Alfred University.
I do. So,
and I just want to make a bad Batman joke because I'm thinking of Batman Alfred. Sorry. But I've never heard of Alfred University. So
most people have not.
Okay. So why did you decide to go there then? I mean,
so about 5 years into teaching, I really missed being a student. I missed being able to create my artwork more than teach. And of course, let's face it, you also get a pay raise when you have that master's degree.
Sure. Wow.
So I started looking into master's programs, and Alfred for glass was one of the tops. They have the best studio, amazing professors. They give you a full ride plus a stipend. They only accept 2 students in that program every year. And so I thought, well, let's give it a shot. And I got in. So I picked up for 2 years. I left teaching, went to Alfred, had an amazing time, and then came back to my teaching job.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
And you've also done some studies at Pilchuck, which is, kind of our Washington State's kind of
glass camp.
Yeah, exactly. It's well known and all of that. I don't know how I want this direction to go. So I think I'm going to call an audible, and we're just going to start about your teaching career first, and then we're going to come into your art at the end, the second half. Okay.
Sure. Absolutely.
So, first off, nothing can go wrong with teenagers and molten glass. There's just
nothing.
It's nothing. And I watched this little TV snippet where your students were like, and we have to dress appropriately. And that's hard sometimes in high school. It was just and I just laughed. I was like, okay. What is it like teaching teenagers the art and craft of glass blowing? That's,
there's never a dull moment. I'll tell you that. It's, but as somebody, when you find something you love, to be able to share that right there is amazing. And then to get students who just love it and get that spark it makes it all worth it. Even if it's one student a year, it makes the whole thing worth it. Of course, I find I tend to hit more students than one a year that get very excited about it. But it's awesome. And especially at that age, because I remember, gosh, if I had this at their age, I would have saved a lot of time trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life when I finished high school. And to be able to change that for somebody else. And I've got several students out there making a living at blowing glass. So it's
really
awesome.
That's awesome.
Do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the story? I mean, Sammamish High School has a glass studio available. That's not a really particularly common thing in the school systems.
It is not at all. Not at all.
My son, like I mentioned before, I hit the button. My son went to Jason Lee Middle School in Tacoma, where they have a glass studio. Mm-hmm. You then said that Wilson High School in Tacoma has one, but it's not like a football team. Most schools don't have a glass blowing program. Mm-mm. Do you know what was Sammamish High School's motivation to put this in? I
do. So let's see, 1999 is the year that the studio opened, and they actually had the program in place before they hired me. And what they were working on was trying to turn the school into the arts magnet school of Bellevue School District. Okay. So being in this area where glass blowing was so big, that's what they looked into doing. So my understanding is they actually built the studio. They had hired somebody to come in and teach it. And then that person backed out last minute and they hired me. How lucky was I?
Right.
And yeah, so while the arts magnet didn't fully take effect, they obviously kept the program. It became a huge success. I mean, I've been running full-time, full classes, and it's just been amazing.
So when you say full-time, full classes, how many class periods a day are you teaching glass?
So, well, it's funny because the schedule has changed a lot over the years. Actually, back when I started, we had a full block schedule, which was 4 hour-and-a-half periods a day. And then every quarter they changed. We're now on what's called a modified block semester classes, 7 periods a day. So I teach 5 of the 7 and get 2 periods to kind of prep and get ready.
So how much glass blowing can the kids actually do in a high school class period nowadays? Because, well, first off, at the time that we're recording this, there hasn't been in-person class. So
Right.
I know you're not teaching them virtually how to blow glass at home. We were joking about that before. But when the classes, so the classes are what, 50 minutes or so, 45, 50 minutes?
So 3 days a week, they are 55 minutes. And then 1 day a week, they are an hour and a half.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that lay out for the students then? So in the 3 days of the week, what are they doing? Are they actually blowing glass in that short amount of period of time, or is it just in that hour and a half day?
So they are blowing glass, and obviously the amount of kids I do have in a class, they're not all working at the same time. So we actually do other glass projects, such as some fusing projects, some lamp working projects. So when they're not blowing glass, they are working on other glass projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then something else you mentioned, I'd like to just circle back to, you mentioned glass blowing being popular, prevalent in the Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that this region kind of has as much glass blowing as we seem to do? It's like we got a lot of coffee. It's like what do you think is the reason that? Chihuly's famous. Was he the draw?
Back in the 70s, Chihuly and Pilchuck kind of came about. And I feel like that's probably when glass blowing kind of became big. And I'm sure I've heard various things, such as the climate here is really nice for blowing glass. You don't want to have a glass studio somewhere. I mean, people do, but where it's hot all the time, because I've actually on the East Coast blown glass in the middle of summer, and it is, ooh.
It doesn't sound like it would be enjoyable because it would be hot and humid.
Correct. And so it's funny because my husband's from Utah. I always joke that it's not humid here. And, me being from the East Coast, him being from Utah, he's like, it is humid here, but I don't think it is, him coming from Utah. So I feel like it's a nicer climate because of the low humidity or different. I don't know.
Okay. So you're teaching students and they go 4 days a week. How many kids are in your classes in an average class?
Around 24. I've had to fight to get that for a long time. So we ran at 24 for the first probably 14 years. We had the studio. So a couple of years ago, they actually rebuilt the school and rebuilt a brand new glass studio. It is just absolutely amazing. And there was a little hiccup between the old studio and the new studio because we were closed for 4 years. And we had a little bit of a class size hiccup, but we managed to get it back down to 24, which is still a lot for a glass blowing studio, but it is definitely more manageable than 30 something.
Wow. So you had 30 teenagers with glass.
32, I think, at one point.
Yeah. I'm just laughing because nothing can go wrong. Nothing can go wrong. No, I think it's awesome that you're doing this.
Safety first.
So how do you obviously have a curriculum and the goal here of the class is, to get them through to do something. Mm-hmm. So first off, are these freshmen that are taking the classes, or is it upper, what is it?
So each class is a mix, freshmen through seniors. They're all in it.
Okay. So if I were to start in your introduction to glassblowing, or whatever the class is called, by the end of the semester, what would I have accomplished if I had done everything that you had laid out for me?
Well, we, for the hot glass part, we start with paperweights. That's the first, this is, of course, after I've gone over all the safety and things like that. I spend a good amount of time, but we start with paperweights, and that way they are kind of learning how to use the tools, how to apply color, how to work with each other. That is such a big thing. You cannot blow glass by yourself. So learning how to work with each other and around each other. Because usually if you're going to get burned, it's possibly from somebody else and, not having that communication and working around each other. After that, we go right into blowing. So we learn how to blow cups and bowls. Sometimes we'll do a little bit of sculpting, making glass flowers. And then if we have enough time, we'll move on to vases. Now this is simultaneous with the fusing. So we also learn how to cut glass, how to follow a pattern. You said you had done a little bit of stained glass before, so about that. Fusing, luckily, is not as meticulous as stained glass, because stained glass, they have to fit next to each other like a puzzle. These, you kind of just stack them and then melt them together. So it's a little more forgiving, which is nice. So they're learning how to cut glass and assemble it and follow a pattern. And then torches. Yeah, we use torches. I often don't get into torches until the intermediate class, where I know they're a little more comfortable around things. But yeah, they'll learn how to kind of make glass beads and just safety of using a torch, lighting a torch, and things like that.
That's so cool. That's
insane.
so cool.
I know. Insane.
No, it's great though. and so you said you've had some kids go on and have a career in the glass industry. That's great.
Yeah.
For those kids that have gone on, where did they go after what was the progression after high school?
I've had some just go on to work at glass studios. I got one student who works at Glassy Baby. I've had one that worked at Seattle Glassblowing. One actually, well, I shouldn't say just one, but that I'm thinking of at this particular moment, actually ended up going to California College of Art, getting his degree, and then kind of working a little bit at the Glass Museum in Tacoma. One that actually has his own studio open up in Arlington. I'm trying to think. So, I mean, some will go out there and work for a company, and some will go and get a college degree.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, because you're doing both, hot glass and, well, it's all kind of hot glass what you're doing, but where are you guys getting the supplies from? I mean, nowadays, because like I said before I hit the button, doing stained glass, Spectrum was big because it was out of Woodinville, and then Ouroboros and Bullseye down in Portland area. Back in the day, there was stuff from Kokomo, or if you could really afford the stuff, you brought in the blown glass, or from France and Germany, if you could really afford the stuff by the square foot. Where are you guys getting supplies?
So there are a couple of main companies, not many. So color I get from Olympic Color Rod and Gaffer Glass, both local. The cullet, which is the clear glass that you start with, that's been a scramble. Spectrum was the big, what's the word I'm looking for? Maker. I'm not
supplier.
Supplier. Yeah. Thank you. They were the main supplier for a long time. When they closed, it was like shock. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And then a company in Mexico actually bought their recipe and has continued to make it. But then a few other companies have kind of stepped up and started making, but then some of them have gone out of business or just couldn't keep up with the demand. And right now I'm actually waiting for some clear glass to come over from, where is it coming from? Overseas somewhere. I'm trying to remember now.
It's not stuck in the Suez Canal, is it?
It is not. I don't think so. But I heard it's on the boat. They've been trying to get it here since December, is my understanding. I've got a little bit left. So I'm gritting my teeth waiting as well. Luckily, the school has some kind of put away for when we do reopen, hopefully in the fall. And hopefully by then they'll have this all sorted out. My understanding is they're able to make it. It's just they keep getting bumped on the ship to get it over here, probably for, medical supplies, maybe. I don't know.
Toilet paper.
Toilet paper. You know.
So what is, I mean, this is something I've never thought about too much, but what is, so the clear glass that you're using, what is, how small are the pieces? I mean, and obviously it's being melted, but what is it?
So there's two main types of clear glass. There's cullet and there's batch. Batch is the raw materials. Batch is ideally preferable, but harder to melt. You need to run your furnace a lot higher of a temperature when you're melting it. And also it's dusty. So you've got to be really careful and wear a respirator when you're charging. I mean, you do for cullet too, but cullet is not as dusty. So cullet is pre-melted and comes in kind of nuggets. People always joke, "Oh, I thought that was a wheelbarrow full of ice cubes." It looks like ice cubes.
Okay. So what does batch look like then? Batch
looks like white powder.
Oh, so it's just
literally the raw material. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And some people have chosen to make their own. I wouldn't even know what goes into trying to make your own batch, mixing the raw materials, but, you've got to have the right COE. You've got to have the right mixture. Some people will choose to melt bottles down, but then you have to make sure you've got all the same type of bottle so that the glass is the same COE. And then if you want to use color with that, there's a lot of science behind it.
So for speaking of science, COE is short for
coefficient of expansion. And what that is so when you heat and cool the glass, like a lot of things that heat and cool, they expand and contract. So you want to make sure that the rate at which they expand and contract is going to be the same as the color you're using. Every glass, depending on how it's formulated, has a different COE, a different rate at which it contracts when it shrinks. So if my color does not have the same COE as my clear glass, then it will not shrink at the same rate and it will crack into pieces as it cools off.
We could have a whole lecture series on the science of glass blowing. We're gonna overlook all that. So when you take the raw goods and put it into the furnace, first of all, how big are these furnaces?
My furnace
at the school. Let's ask you at the school first. Let's go to the school's route.
Furnace, I think, is 250 pounds, and I've got two furnaces. I'm only running one at a time, but I could run two if I needed to. I'm trying to remember now. I'm pretty sure it's 250.
So that means it can have 250 pounds of cullet there.
Mm-hmm.
At the school. Do you run them at the full 250 or do you put, only, okay. So how long does that last?
I tend to top it off every other day because the lower the glass gets, the further the students need to reach in, the hotter they get. Some people who are used to it, don't have a problem going in a little further. It is better to use the glass up before adding new on top. It's just better for the glass. Quality. But with students trying to be, err on the side of safety, I tend to keep it full so they don't have to go in very
far. You're keeping the furnace going 24/7 to keep that liquid.
You have to keep it running regardless of how full it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you were to be not topping it off, how long would 250, you make a lot of vases, right?
I do. My furnace is only 80 pounds.
Okay. But if I were to say, here, you can use the 250 pound furnace and make your vases. How many vases could you make out of a batch, if you will?
A lot. I would say each vase is probably about 2 to 2.5 pounds.
Okay.
That's weighed after I have made it. Now you also have to account for the glass that's left on the blowpipe after you break it off and things like that. But maybe with that
80?
included about 3 pounds per vase.
Okay. Glass. So maybe about 70 to 80.
I'm not a math person. That sounds right.
Okay. Well, that's just because I never thought about these, I didn't warn you that these episodes are kind of like Grateful Dead shows. You say something and then I'm going to go off meandering
That's
around
okay.
for a while. No, I just think it's fascinating. So I never really thought about this. I mean, I did, but the furnace is going to be running. You keep it running 24/7. So literally if you decided at 2 a.m. to walk out to your studio, you could blow glass within a few minutes if you wanted to. You're not firing this thing up, waiting for it to heat back up. Okay.
Not the furnace. The glory hole I have to turn on and off every time. The annealer I turn on and off every time. The color box, but the furnace stays on. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So 20 plus years of teaching students.
Yep.
You seem relatively sane. I don't know how any teacher can do that. Anyway.
It's Sunday. It's Sunday.
It's Sunday. Share with us a couple of interesting stories from those 20 years. There's got to be a couple of, like you're like, huh.
Oh, I've got one. Oh okay. My gosh. This goes way back. Do you remember floppy disks?
Yes.
I don't know how many people listening will remember those. And I'm not even sure how this happened, but I had a student think it would be funny to see what would happen if they threw a floppy disk into the glory hole.
Oh.
Yeah, we had to evacuate it. Lots of
seriously, what happened?
Burning plastic, black smoke, plastic, toxic. Also, did you know, I'm sure you do know this, not all pennies are 100% copper.
Correct.
That's pretty common, I thought, information. I told a student one time, copper is the only metal that is compatible with glass. So you can actually encase copper in glass. Well, he thought it would be cool to put a penny in glass, but didn't check that the penny was not from the year that was 100% copper, so they're copper-coated zinc. Well, zinc is toxic when you heat it up. So before I knew it, he's got hot glass dripping on a penny and green fumes and smoke, and oh my gosh, yeah. So those two come to mind.
Okay, so that's that's some creative thinking though. I mean, you did tell him that copper, penny, and okay. I mean, at least he didn't try a nickel or something. I mean, he.
Fair enough.
Okay, so all right, now this is a subjective question, but of all these years of your students, the output that your students have done is anything like, did somebody ever create something you're like, wow, that's pretty darn cool, not what I expected to see? I mean, has there been any real amazing pieces that have come out of the students?
One of the funnest projects that I do with my advanced class is I have them make glass food.
Glass food.
Okay. And they have got to make the whole kind of shebang, the plate, the food, the cup. And yeah, I've had some really awesome things come from that. They've made a plate with individual pancakes and the pat of butter. And the last one, they actually dripped amber colored hot glass on to make the syrup. I've had some sushi rolls, some cups of ice cream, each individual scoop. And I had actually, this was a demo that I did one time, was to blow a cup and make it look like it was filled with hot chocolate. And then the other fun one I like to do. So I will often have guest artists come in and do demos. And two friends of mine, one is one of my best friends who has since passed on, but he and another friend came out, and what we had the students do is everybody kind of wrote anything on a piece of paper, and we threw it into a hat and then picked two. And I remember one, they had to make, so the guest artists had to make whatever these kids chose, and one was a turkey sitting on a slice of bread, and another one was a sock monkey and a squid, I believe. And so they had the squid kind of attacking the sock monkey. So
I can't even imagine how they went about creating that.
We have a lot of fun with that stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. We'll wrap up the school teaching thing. So before you went we hit the button, you said tomorrow is your first day back in class, right?
Back in class, still not teaching glassblowing with only 2.5 months left. We are not, unfortunately, going to open the glass studio. It takes about a week to warm up and then a week to safely shut it down. And the timing, unfortunately, is just not going to work out for that.
Okay.
So I'll be back teaching art.
All right. So next fall, hopefully the glass studio will be up and functioning.
I sure hope so. Oh my gosh.
Right. But that's your day job.
Mm-hmm.
Your other evening job, maybe, I don't know, weekend job, is you have your own glass studio.
I do.
How long have you had that?
Let's see. We've had that going. Well, we opened it right when my first was born, and he's about to be 11. So I guess 11 years I've had that going.
And what is your primary output at your studio?
I do a lot of different things, but since the pandemic hit, I've been doing a lot of vases. I love flowers, and I've pretty much kept flowers in my house constantly. And so I decided to make these really just colorful vases, being stuck at home and looking around and like, I just needed something different. So the vases that I make now kind of came out of being stuck at home and doing really colorful stuff. Previous to that, I actually did a lot of clear sculptural work, which I still do. But I've been focusing on the colorful vases lately.
All right. And I'm on your Instagram page, which I accidentally hit a video. That was that little noise you might have just heard, because I wanted to see, I'm looking at a picture of I'll read you your description. Maybe this will jog. This is from March 21st. And your description is, did you know that most glass colors look different when they are hot? Swipe to see the before for this after. Okay. So, and it's a rainbow bowl. If I can have your permission, can I steal that picture and put it below our page so that people can reference this if they're looking?
Of course.
Okay. All right. That's pretty cool looking. Can you, then we're going to ask you to describe with words a visual thing, but how did you, what's the process there to get those colors? How does that happen? Because it looks very different than some of your vases.
Is that the transparent color fade one you're looking at?
It does look like it's transparent color fades. Yes.
Yep. All right. Got it. So, so for the, I guess I'll backtrack a little bit. So, maybe I should talk a little bit about how I get the colors. Like painters buy tubes of paint. I buy rods of color. So it comes in a long rod and you chop off pieces and that's what you melt down.
So how do you, because glass breaks, how do you control the break so you're not just shattering the entire rod of glass?
Oh, I have a diamond saw.
Okay. So you're actually sawing it through. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're taking your hammer and tapping off a little bit. You're using a very sharp diamond saw to cut off a piece of the rod.
That's what I do. Okay. Now, some people do use a hammer and a piece of angle iron or some sort of contraption like that. It's not as controlled as the diamond saw, but you can do it that way as well. So I cut off, I kind of play with the rods. Luckily, I can take the rods and put them next to each other and decide which colors I like together. I cut a chunk off, put it in what's called a color box, which is a little oven, warms it up. It's got to be about, what do I set it at? 10,000 or 10,000. Oh my gosh. 1,010 degrees. I pick it up when it's 1,010 degrees and kind of melt it. And then I wrap it around the glass. So for the opaque ones, I apply each color individually. I wrap it around. For those color fade ones, I actually just kind of pick a chunk up on each side of the clear glass that I've gathered. And then I heat it up and just kind of swirl them together on the marber table to get that pattern.
That's it. Wow. So I'm looking at another picture here and it looks like these are your color rods. From the angle, it almost looks like they're candles.
Yeah, they're kind of, same shape.
They look, well, and it's the texture from what I can see in this photograph. So where are you getting those at? For who's the provider of the color rods?
Yeah, I primarily use Gaffer and what's called Reichenbach. So Olympic Color Rod in Seattle carries Reichenbach, and Gaffer Glass. They actually started off in New Zealand. Their warehouse their studio is now in Portland, I believe, solely. But they have a warehouse in Kent that I get them. So those are the two main colors that I use, companies.
And so what's the size of these rods?
They actually come, they're weighed and you pay by the kilo. So the sizes totally vary.
But I'm looking here and they all kind of, in this picture that you have, they all look like they're relatively similar lengths. Are we talking a 12-inch rod? Or are they longer?
Some are definitely longer. Some are shorter. Yeah. Some are thicker and some are skinnier. Some of them are hand rolled. A lot of them are hand rolled. So they vary in thickness.
So these are, okay. So in some cases, are they machine rolled then? Are they using a machine to create these rods, or is this handcrafted all the way through?
I think that Gaffer and Reichenbach still hand roll, but I'm not positive. I know some are machined. Okay. I don't have the exact answer for you on that. I'm pretty sure most of them are still hand rolled though. You
didn't know there was going to be so many questions.
No, that's good.
No, your work is cool. So I'm looking at pictures. That's
mesmerizing.
And I'm afraid that the videos are going to go off. And so these photos on your Instagram, is this your studio or is this in Sammamish?
Nope, that's my studio.
This is your studio. And so for some reason now the pictures don't want to load. Technology is not my friend.
It happens.
Your vases that you're currently making. Let's go ahead and walk us through. How long does it take you to make a vase? I you've been doing this for years, so you're going to obviously, it takes me this long, and that doesn't, but what's involved in making a vase?
The longest part of making a vase, I feel like, or maybe it's about half of the time making it, is applying the color. That definitely takes, the bulk of the time. Yes, I have spent 27 years to get to this point.
Right.
It's funny. I keep seeing this post every now and again, and it has to do with pricing art. And it's just kind of like, just because it only takes me an hour to make a vase, I've spent 27 years leading up to being able to make that vase. So I would say, about an hour, give or take. Sometimes there are like, this blew out a little funky. It's going to take me a little longer to fix this. Or, if everything goes perfectly, about an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, if there's things I've got to mess around with.
So what happens if you're working on a piece and you've applied color and it's just not coming together? It's not. This may not happen to you anymore. I'm sure it's happened in the past. It's just not coming together. What do you do with that failed? I mean, can you throw it in the oven and melt it down and use it again? Or
not if there's color in it.
Okay. So once the color's applied, we're committed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so then unfortunately it's an accident. Okay. So you're blowing this piece. It takes you about an hour, and then it goes into the annealing oven, correct? To be cooled down correctly so that it doesn't
shatter.
How long is it going to the annealing into the oven for to cool down?
About 24 hours.
And how many of those can you be putting in the oven at one time? Because you're not just making one and putting in the oven for a day. Are you doing more than one at a time, right? Yeah,
we tend to make about 4, maybe a little more in each session. It's just, like you said, it's not my day job. It's my evening and weekend job, aside from parenting a 9 and 11-year-old. So that's about the amount of time we can spend in one shot to work. So it is. I would love to have this as my full-time job, just making my own artwork, but hasn't gotten to that point where we pay the bills yet. maybe someday.
Do your kids have any interest in glass?
They've tried it a few times. They are still not quite strong enough to support the pipe themselves yet. But they've made paperweights. My oldest has sold 2 already paperweights. He's a little budding artist. They're at their age, they're more into video games than anything right now. So we can coax them out there every now and again to give it a try. But I don't want to be that parent that forces anything on my kids. If they want to try it, absolutely, I'll let you do it. Sure. But I'm not going to make them. But yeah, so they've shown a little interest.
Well, I think, there's that line between encouragement and, forcing them to try something and then rebelling and not liking what learn to play the piano, for example.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Sure.
So your Instagram is distracting. That's the it's very cool. So how do I say, what's next? Okay. So you're doing a lot of vases right now. Mm-hmm. You've gone in phases in your career where you've gone from, making a lot of vases to something else. I'm guessing, what was before vases? What were you doing a lot of before the vases?
I was doing a lot of sculptural work, which I still do. So you had mentioned Pratt earlier in our conversation. I too spent a lot of time at Pratt when I first got here. I took a lot of welding classes and got really into welding. And so actually, on my website, there's a section called Wall Chandeliers, and I do a lot of welded frames with clear glass drops hanging on them. Yeah, and so I actually did a big installation at Bellevue Art Museum many years ago, and that piece was acquired by the, I believe it's Kittitas County Medical Center that just opened. So they purchased that, and that's hanging in their new medical facility in Ellensburg, which is pretty cool. And so, I really enjoy doing those, just pure clear glass and welding. Welding is so fun. It's nice because, glass blowing, you have to do with somebody. You have to have an assistant. You have to work as a team. And every now and again, it's nice to just zone out and do something on your own. And I can do those all by myself. I make the drops by myself, the frames by myself. So it's nice to have 2 ways of working with glass, that kind of group effort. And then that I'm just going to do this by myself,
So is your husband in the studio blowing glass with you?
He is.
So what's his day job?
He works for Seattle City Light.
Okay.
He previously was an electrician. Now he is a meter guy. He installs and removes meters for the city.
Okay. So how long has he been blowing glass?
Since I taught him when we met.
Okay. you met. Okay. It sounds like there's a story there. Yeah. So how did you get him into blowing? I mean, what's the story there? How did you convince him? I
kind of just told him that's what he's going to do. It works awesome. It's actually a really nice relationship. It works out well because I feel like a lot of glass blowers get into it because they really like making things. And then, you have to do it with a partner, and you need to get with somebody who knows what they're doing. And then you kind of fight over the time to make it it's my turn to work, or it's my turn to work, and you have to help me. And, which is all well and good. But then he's like, oh, this is pretty cool. But he doesn't feel artistic. So he just really likes the mechanics of doing it. And so he's not concerned about taking my time to make his own stuff.
Okay. Well, no. So he's the craft of it, if you will.
Exactly.
The technical
and studio tech. It's fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah. He hooked my whole studio up. If things break, he fixes it. And it's perfect.
Well, that is a good working relationship.
It is.
That's cool. That's very cool. No, I'm looking through. So when I'm looking through it, all your work is sold on your website. So it's
there's still a few pieces on there.
Well, it doesn't give it. I've noticed when it says sold, it doesn't give me a lot of details, but I'm noticing some similar color palettes between, say, a vase and a bowl. Are you making those at the same time?
No, not necessarily.
No. Okay. Thanks. Now I don't know what to say.
I guess to touch on that a little bit, I find that vases sell more than bowls. Plus, personally, I prefer vases because I'm a flower person. So I tend to make more vases than bowls. But I like to throw a bowl in there every now and again just to mix it up.
So who's doing your photography on your website for your art?
I am.
Nice.
I kind of do everything. I do my website, the photography, I make the glass, I grind the glass, I promote the glass, I do my social media, I teach, I parent. What else do I do? I go boxing. That little amount of free time I have left.
So one of the things about it, we always like to ask people what they do when they're not doing the thing that we're talking about. So when you and I had talked on the phone, you had mentioned boxing. Huh? What was the motivation and inspiration to try boxing?
Well, after having kids, I gained a little bit of weight, and I got to the point where I was like, I am not comfortable anymore with this extra weight. And I started just going to the gym. And after about a year of going to the gym, I just had to get off that feeling that I was a hamster on a wheel. And so I started looking for other options, and kickboxing came to mind. And so I tried a kickboxing gym, and I was like, yeah, this is cool. I was like, but I'm not much into the kicking part. I really like the punching though. And so I started researching and found out there was this boxing gym right in White Center, about 2 minutes from my house. And I was like, So I called up and took a class, and that was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I've been there ever since.
Really? So I know nothing about boxing. I mean, you wear gloves, you hit each other. Yes, I know that, but that's not what you're doing for training, is it? I mean, you're not going in and sparring as your workout. Are you going and working out against you're giving me that look like, nope, you're wrong. So are you going in and doing 3 rounds with somebody?
I have done a little bit of sparring, but no, I am not trying to train to become a professional boxer. It is purely for fitness. But yes, I have tried sparring a few times, and it is very exhilarating and exciting. But no, I don't ever want to get in a ring and fight for real. I'm too old for that. I am a parent. I can't afford to lose any more brain cells from getting knocked in the head. When we spar, we've got the headgear on. Yeah. But no, of course, with COVID, we have not worked with a partner in over a year now. So it's a lot of heavy bag hitting, learning technique, and calisthenics too. I mean, it's a well-rounded workout. So, and it's fun. It's every time it's different. It's not go to the gym, get on a machine, run for a half hour, go lift a few, it's different every time. And it's just like, I'm not bored of going, and it's been almost 5 years, I think. And it's every time it's exciting.
Okay. That's awesome. So you do have copious amounts of free time because, like you said, you teach, you're a mom, you're a wife, you got a studio, you box. So when you're not doing any of that, where are some places in your neck of the woods that you think are kind of like, are you a coffee drinker?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I spent time barista-ing. Is that a word? Barista-ing. Yes, I am. I love coffee. Absolutely. I barista'd for Cafe D'Arte, and I am a huge D'Arte fan. I still get it mail delivered to me. Tarmina's my bean.
Okay. So what's your coffee beverage of choice?
I just tend to do, those stovetop espresso makers.
Yep.
I make a full pot of that.
The mocha pot?
Yep.
Okay.
I make a full pot of that. That's my drink. And if I'm going for something sweet, I'll add a little chocolate and do a mocha.
Okay. Yeah, no, the stovetop espresso machines are fun.
Oh, I love it.
Kind of comes out,
I'm that person. I don't travel without it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I take my AeroPress with me, so I get it.
You got the way you like it. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the AeroPress is easy, and it just, just put it all together into one tube, and there it goes, and throw it in the car and take coffee.
Yep. There you go.
Okay. What else do you guys do for fun and excitement?
We're RV people. We have a travel trailer, so we tend to take a lot of trips. Yeah, my gosh, I love going to the coast. That's probably my jam. We go down to Ocean Shores, Copalis a lot. Oregon coast is awesome, but that's not Washington, so we won't talk about that. No, I'm just kidding. Water. Me and my husband both are water people, ocean. Although I prefer warm ocean, I'm okay being by the ocean.
Okay. What about the kids? What are the kids like?
Everything.
Where do the kids want to go?
They love going in the trailer. They love to be outside. My husband likes to surf, and he's recently kind of got them wetsuits and got them in the water. They're water people too. They could spend all day in a pool or in the ocean if they didn't freeze to death.
So where's your husband? Where's he surfing at? Is he surfing up at Westport?
Yep. We've gone to Westport a few times. Oregon coast again. Sorry.
That's okay. It's all right. It's okay. Well, that's okay. So that's pretty cool. So we'll circle back to your art, because you've words escape me sometimes.
Yeah.
You're in Gallery 1 in Ellensburg.
Yeah.
How'd you end up there? I'm only asking because I went to college in Ellensburg.
Oh, nice.
And not to insult Ellensburg, but when I think of art, I don't think of Ellensburg. Oh. I kind of think of the rodeo, and
totally.
That's, or in my case, beer drinking, because that was college.
Yeah.
But Gallery 1's a very cool gallery.
It is very cool. We actually stumbled upon it on one of our camping trips up to Ellensburg. It might have been, actually, it was the year I too went to the rodeo for the first time a few years ago. Don't get me started. I wasn't a big fan, but anyway. Well,
I don't go to the rodeo. I mean, that's what I think of with Ellensburg.
For sure. My kid really wanted to go, and I thought, what the heck? I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Anyway, Ellensburg's pretty nice, but we stumbled upon the gallery, and I kind of, they actually, the first thing I did was they do a, what do you want to call it? Like a holiday themed call to artists around the holiday season, where they choose a form. And so one year it was a reindeer head, and any artist could participate, where you would get this, I think it's just like paper mache reindeer head, and then you would art it up and then show it in the gallery. So that's kind of I feel like my first working with them. And then Instagram, both galleries that I'm in right now. So I'm in Gallery 1 and oh my gosh, Gray Sky Gallery. Thank you. My kid just popped his head in, and I'm like, no, go away. Gray Sky down in Pioneer Square. Both of those, we kind of connected on Instagram. They found me, or I found them. I don't remember. So Instagram has been a great tool, I feel like, during the pandemic for artists. And so both of them kind of reached out and said, hey, your work is awesome. We'd love to show it. And it was like, okay. So, yeah.
And then you've got a show going, at least according to your resume, of your website says you're in St. Petersburg, Florida as well.
Yep. I've got one of my wall chandeliers up at the Imagine Museum in St. Pete. Very cool museum. Oh my gosh. I was able to go out and see the piece in person and check out the museum. And it is awesome. It is really just a great museum. So pretty honored to have my work in that.
So I'm going to put you on the spot, because I'm going to reference a very specific picture on your website. Okay. So on the page where it's got your King 5 evening news story and then your galleries. There's a picture of you sitting at a table with your, like, it's a globe of glass. I mean, and like, you've got like a towel underneath it, like you're trying to smooth it. And it's kind of a opaque, you're wearing like a yellow arm sleeve to protect your arm.
Uh-huh.
And the glass is a little bit lighter than that. And you're concentrating. You can see the glasses on the pipe, and it's over the edge of a table. Like you're rotating it in doing some form of finishing work or smoothing or shaping of some sort.
I'm trying to find that picture you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm just curious what you're doing in that particular picture.
So am I holding a tool?
You are, no, one hand, I can't, yes. I don't know what you're holding. It looks like a golf club. I don't know what you, that's why I'm asking. So it's, the glass is on the pipe. You've got the glass hanging over an edge of like a wall. You're sitting down on a wooden table.
So I would be sitting at the bench. Yep.
You're sitting at a bench. Your right hand is underneath this glass object with a towel in it.
Oh, I'm using a newspaper, a wet newspaper.
Oh, okay. So what are you doing?
Is that the picture you're talking about? Does it look like?
I think it looks like a newspaper. Yeah.
Is the towel you're referring to is touching the glass?
Yes.
Okay, so that is actually a pad of wet newspaper. And have you ever done ceramics on the wheel?
No.
Okay. You've seen it though. You've seen the movie Ghost, right? Everybody's seen that, right? Where you use your hands and the wheel's spinning and you smooth it out. Well, so this is Glassblower's way of being able to do that, only instead of my hand touching the glass, the pad of wet newspaper is in between protecting my hand. And so I am shaping the glass with the wet newspaper.
And so your left hand is kind of rolling the pipe back or rolling the pipe to make the movement.
Yeah.
Okay. But then there's this, it looks like there's just from the angle of the picture, and it's not, but it looks like there's a golf club to your left. And I think it's anyway, you'll go look at the picture and you'll go, what's he talking about? So because we've talked about a very visual medium here today, and in audio format doesn't do the visual medium all that much justice, where can people find your work to go take a look at it online? You've mentioned Instagram. So what's your Instagram handle?
Yep. Misoda Glass.
Okay. It's original. No, just kidding.
I know, right? Woo.
And where else online besides Instagram can people find you?
My website, which is melissamisoda.com. I've also, if you're old school and have Facebook, again, Misoda Glass on Facebook.
Okay. Awesome.
I haven't quite reached out to the other social media platforms yet. People have mentioned, how come you're not on, is it TikTok? I feel like I just got a grasp on Instagram. Don't throw any more at me.
We'll come back to that in a second. But also you mentioned you're going to be doing a show in May.
Oh, yes.
Correct?
Thank you for reminding me. Yes. Full Moon Market. Check them out. So they have been doing virtual shows on Instagram since the pandemic, but they are holding their first in-person show down in Pioneer Square on May 2nd, right before Mother's Day. Hello. And I'm pretty excited about that. So yes, if you want to see my work in person, you can come check out that show. And I know they're doing, they've got it all planned out with social distancing, limiting the amount of people that can come in. And it's a pretty big event space. I think it's called the 101 event space in Pioneer Square. And it's from, I want to say 11 to 3, but they're also doing VIP tickets. You can check out their website and find out more information on that.
Great. Well, thank you very much for taking some time out of your, busy schedule. And we're probably keeping you from the boxing gym this afternoon, I guess. Maybe.
Now you're keeping me from my kids. It's Easter, right?
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, thank you for making this happen. And any last words that you have? Go for it.
No, find me on Instagram. Give me a shout out, a follow, share, word of mouth is the best way to get around. And thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. This has been a lot of fun.
Awesome.
All right. Well, we're going to let you go.
Awesome.
Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Join us next time for another episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast.